Hi, my name is Ryan, and I'm the math teacher behind Physmatics Education Services. And today we're going to start our SAT Math Prep series. So the goal for this series is going to be to create a series of videos where we go through all 6 publicly available SAT practice exams from College Board's website, and we do a few of the math problems every single day until we've completed them all. And at the end, we'll have a full content library of videos, instructional videos, where students can study all of the publicly available math questions that College Board has put out there. So this is going to be video 1 in the series. This is from practice exam number 1 on College Board's website, and I will link the link to this practice exam in the description for this video. So in order to keep these videos as brief as possible, we are going to jump right in. So the first 6 questions from the first practice exam are fairly straightforward. Normally, at least on the practice exams, the questions kind of build in complexity from beginning to end. So this first question simply says, what is 10% of 470? Most people can probably do this one relatively quickly, but if you didn't know, percent means per 100. So this 10% literally means 10 per 100. And if I'm thinking about simplifying fractions, and I cancel out some zeros here, 10% or 10 per 100 is really the same as 1/10. So if I wanted to find 10% of 470, I can think about that by taking the fraction 1/10 and multiplying it by 470. And if you know your rules for multiplying fractions, I can turn 470 into a fraction by putting it over 1. Whenever we multiply fractions, we always multiply numerators times numerators and denominators times denominators. So 1 times 470 in the numerator will give me 470, and 10 times 1 in the denominator will give me 10, and 470 divided by 10 is 47. Again, when we're dividing, if you have extra zeros on the end of your numbers in the numerator and denominator, you can just cancel those out. And so 470 over 10 is the same as 47 over 1, which is just 47. So that would be answer choice B. Question number 2. This one says, which equation has the same solution as the given equation? And what they give us here is they give us the equation 4x plus 6 equals 18. So in order to start this question, if we were going to start to try and find out, well, what is the solution to the given equation, what I would want to do is subtract 6 on both sides. We can make that better. Let's subtract 6 from both sides of the equation. And what we'll end up with is 4x equals 18 minus 6 is, of course, 12. And so you don't actually have to go any further, right? Some people might try and actually solve this equation for x and then solve answer choice A, B, C, and D for x and find the answer choices that match. But on a timed exam, anything you can do to save yourself time is going to be beneficial to you. So what we can do here is we can see that one of the intermediate steps that we end up with in solving the given equation matches one of the equations they give us in the answer. And since answer choice C and this intermediate step that we came up with here are matching equations, they must have matching answers. And so C has to be the correct choice. So answer choice, or question number 3, we end up with an inequalities question. So this one says, the total cost in dollars to rent a surfboard consists of a $25 service fee and a $10 per hour rental fee. A person rents a surfboard for T hours and intends to spend a maximum of $75 to rent the surfboard. Which inequality represents this situation? So when I'm completing a question like this, the first thing I'm going to do is highlight some of the key information So they define a variable for me. They give me a cost, and they give me a flat fee, right? So the variable they give me is T hours. That's how long I'm going to rent the surfboard for. And then they are going to tell me here it's going to cost me $10 per hour to rent that surfboard on top of a $25 flat fee. So if I wanted to figure out how much it's going to cost me to rent the surfboard, I'm going to start with these $10 per hour, right? Here's my $10, and that my total cost is going to depend on T, the number of hours that I decide to rent the surfboard for. So if I rent for 1 hour, it will be $10, or 10 times 1. If I rent for 5 hours, that will be $50, or 10 times 5. Now we're always going to be stuck with this $25 service fee, no matter how long we decide to rent the surfboard for, right? $25 service fee, I could rent for 1 hour, 10 hours. I'm still going to have to pay this one-time fee of $25. And now we get to the inequality portion here, where it tells us we want to spend a maximum of $75. So the vocabulary is important here. Maximum means no more than. So however much money I spend on this surfboard, I want it to be less than or equal to 75, right? Maximum means less than or equal to. And now they didn't trouble us too much with the answer choices here because they use the same symbol every single time, but just for your benefit and your memory, we always read our symbols from left to right. So if my arrow is pointing to the left, that would be less than or equal to, and if my arrow is pointing to the right, that would be greater than or equal to, and I always just think about it as left for less than. So it looks like here our answer is going to be answer choice D, and even though it's not an exact match to what we wrote here on the right, what we should remember is that the addition property is commutative, meaning order doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter that answer choice D says 25 plus 10t, and what I wrote says 10t plus 25, because addition is commutative, meaning we can flip-flop those orders and we still have the same expression. All right, so that brings us to question number 4. This is a function notation question. It says the function g is defined by g of x equals x squared plus 9, for which value of x is g of x equal to 25. So the biggest mistake that I'll see students make on a question like this is they'll take 25 and they'll plug it in for x. And that's actually not what we want to do here, right? When they want you to take an input and substitute it for x, the notation looks like this. That would say g of 25. This says g of 25, and that's telling you everywhere in the equation that we've given you, replace x with 25. But that's not what they've asked us to do here. What they've asked us to do they've asked us to actually solve for x when the output for the function, or when g of x itself, is 25. So when I look at the original equation that they gave me, g of x equals x squared plus 9, I'm going to replace this entire symbol with what they tell me it's equal to in the next line, and that would be 25. So I'm going to have x squared plus 9 equals 25, and we're just going to do some quick algebra. We're going to use inverse operations to isolate x, starting by subtracting 9 on both sides, which will leave me with x squared equals 25 minus 9, which is 16. So now I'm left with x squared. That's not what I want. I just want x. And so the inverse of raising a variable to an exponent of 2, or squaring something, is to take the square root. So squaring something and taking the square root, those are inverses, so that will leave me with just x. And then the square root of 16 in reality is plus or minus 4. We can get into why it's plus or minus in another video. In this particular question, they're only giving us positive answer choices, so the answer that we're looking for is just going to be 4, or answer choice A. So we have 2 more questions here. Question number 5 is a statistics and probability question. It says each face of a fair 14-sided die is labeled with a number from 1 through 14, with a different number appearing on each face. If the die is rolled 1 time, what is the probability of rolling a 2? So first of all, in statistics, if you're dealing with probability, you can express this entire little paragraph here in probability notation by writing something like this. P of, let's say, roll a 2, right? So whatever event you put in parentheses next to this capital P is going to be the event that you're looking for the probability of. So in this case, I'm asking what is the probability that I roll a 2? Now, there are different types of probabilities that you can calculate if you take a statistics class, but when you're dealing with a sample space or a set of outcomes where each outcome has an equal probability of occurring, right? And we know that that's the case here because they told us we have a fair die. So on a fair die, each side has an equal chance of being the one that lands face up. So on a fair die, what's the probability that we roll a 2 if our die is labeled 1 through 14? So whenever we're working in a sample space with equally likely outcomes, we can think about the probability as the desired outcome divided by the total number of outcomes. And so in this situation, what I think of is, well, how many outcomes or how many faces on that die match the desired one, which is rolling a 2? Well, if I have 14 sides, each with a different number, only one of them is going to have a 2. I'm labeled 1 through 14. Only one of them is going to have a 2. And how many total outcomes are there? Well, there are 14 sides on the die. Each one of them is equally likely to appear. So my total number of outcomes is 14. And so the probability that I roll a 2 on a fair 14-sided die is 1 out of 14. And our very last question today says, a printer produces posters at a constant rate of 42 posters per minute. At what rate in posters per hour does a printer produce the posters? So basically they are giving us a rate in minutes, and they are asking us to convert that into a rate per hours. So let's just write this out then. I have a printer that produces 42 posters per minute. So whenever you're expressing a rate, right, and they give you this per, you're going to think in terms of division, right? My numerator is going to be the first word, and my denominator is going to be the second word. So posters per minute, this is how I can express posters per minute. And what they want us to convert that to is how many posters per hour. Well, if I can do 42 posters in 1 minute, now I have to think, well, how many minutes are there in an hour? And of course, there are 60 minutes in an hour. So if I can do 42 posters in 1 minute, how many posters can I do in 60 minutes? So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to multiply by 60. And I'll also use units here, minutes per 1 hour. There are 60 minutes in 1 hour. And so now I'm just going to do some multiplication. So if I do 42 times 60, that will give me 2,000 2,520. These questions are from a calculator accepted section, so you could just plug that into your calculator. But remember, we want to express this in units, okay? Because they asked us for a rate, so we're going to express with the rate that they ask us, right? It says in posters per hour, right? Well, if I think about it here, I have some minutes in the numerator and I have minutes in the denominator, and I can actually divide these away or reduce them to 1. Basically just cross them off, and what units am I left with? In the numerator, I'm left with posters per, and in the denominator, I'm left with hour. So if I can do 42 posters a minute, I can do 2,520 posters per hour. Alrighty, so that is going to do it for video 1 in this series, and in the future we will sequentially go through each of those practice exams until we have completed them all. And if you would like to sign up for an SAT prep session, you can go on over to physmatics.com, which is linked in the bio of this YouTube channel. Alright, see you guys next time.